They had always underestimated Earth. The galaxy called it a backwater world, a minor blue marble circling a yellow sun, scarred by centuries of war and yet producing nothing of value. No precious metals, no rare elements, no cultural artifacts worth stealing. Just people. Billions of them. The great powers ignored humanity for centuries. They watched humans struggle with their own problems, poverty, war, politics, and dismissed them as insignificant. But empires grow greedy, and sooner or later, someone always turns their eyes where they shouldn't. It was the Veil Dominion who made the mistake. They arrived in Sol with ships that blotted out the stars, their banners of conquest glowing across the void. They came not to trade, nor to bargain, but to take, to break Earth into another slave world. Their demands echoed across every human broadcast. Kneel, and your species shall serve. Resist, and your world shall burn. At first, humanity felt the crushing weight of despair. Cities were leveled. Military satellites were vaporized in their orbits. The moon's colonies fell in hours. Humanity's first contact with the galaxy was not a handshake, it was a boot pressed to its neck. For a time, it seemed the Veil had won. But there is something in humanity, something the other races had never understood. They had cataloged our weaknesses, our fragile bodies, our short lives, our divided nations. What they never cataloged was the fire that lives in every human heart when survival is threatened, the fire that turns despair into fury, and in the ashes of shattered cities the fire caught. The first sign of defiance came from the shadows. Old war bunkers, forgotten shipyards, hidden colonies, places the Dominion had dismissed as useless, became hives of resistance. Human engineers worked by flickering light to rebuild ancient war machines, some older than their grandparents. Smugglers ferried supplies past Dominion patrols. Families hid soldiers in their basements, and across every channel a phrase was whispered, "You should have left us alone." It was not a plea, it was a promise. The first counterstrike came, in the belt. The Veil had stationed a garrison at Ceres to control asteroid mining. They expected obedience. What they received instead was the roar of human guns. Outdated ships, cobbled together from ore haulers and scrapped military craft, fell upon the garrison with suicidal ferocity. The Dominion laughed at first, until their command ship exploded in a blaze that lit the dark for minutes. The news spread faster than light across the system. Humans had drawn blood. The Dominion retaliated, of course. They always did. They burned Ceres from orbit, but for every ship destroyed, another rose. For every base leveled, another 3 went dark and silent, hiding resistance within. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not retreat in orderly lines nor beg for terms. They fought in ambushes, in sabotage, in fury. They turned every asteroid into a fortress, every moon into a gun nest, and then came the war machines. The Dominion thought Earth's fleets were outdated relics. They weren't wrong at first, but humans are innovators when pressed. They stripped weapons from orbital defense grids and bolted them onto battleships. They built railguns the size of skyscrapers and mounted them on asteroids. They invented weapons the galaxy had never seen, ugly, brutal, and terrifyingly effective. The Tyrant's Fist, the Dominion flagship, discovered this when a human warship rammed it head-on, detonating a reactor that tore the vessel into 2 burning halves. The sight of Dominion wreckage blazing across Earth's skies was the spark that lit the galaxy aflame. From that moment, it was not survival humans sought, it was vengeance. They struck at Dominion fleets in ambushes. They cut supply lines and left entire armadas starving. They turned captured Dominion technology against its masters, rewiring alien war drones to serve human commanders. Where the Dominion expected surrender, they met defiance. Where they expected broken spirits, they found unyielding will, and with every victory, humanity's voice grew louder across the stars. The Dominion soon realized a truth they had never faced before: fear. Their reports to the High Command were filled with disbelief. These primitives refuse surrender. Their losses only make them stronger. They weaponize desperation itself. Worlds that once bowed to the Dominion began to whisper. If the humans, fragile, unadvanced humans, could defy the mighty Veil, then maybe others could too. Rebellions ignited in the shadows of Dominion space, inspired by the sight of Terran warships cutting through armadas that once ruled unchallenged. The Dominion tried to silence those whispers. They tried terror. They tried extermination. They tried overwhelming force. None of it worked. Because humanity did not fight for conquest. Humanity fought for survival, and survival is the sharpest blade. The war dragged on. Years passed. The Dominion lost fleets, then sectors, then whole swathes of territory. Every time they regrouped, the humans struck again. Every time they rebuilt, another fortress world fell. And when the Terrans finally reached the Dominion's homeworld, their fleets burning bright in the night skies above, the alien leaders spoke the same words their soldiers had muttered in fear for years. We should have left them alone. The bombardment that followed was not conquest. It was judgment. For the galaxy, the message was clear. Humanity had been tested, broken, and remade in fire. They had been underestimated for too long. Now they were no longer the backwater species, on a blue marble. Now they were the fire that burned empires. And from that day forward, across every world, every station, every fleet, a single phrase carried in hushed tones. You should have left the humans alone. Then you wouldn't have had war. For centuries, the galaxy mocked Earth. It was a small, fragile planet orbiting an unremarkable star on the edge of known space. The humans who lived there were seen as backward, violent even by galactic standards, and divided among themselves. When they reached the stars with their crude ships, the elder races sneered. They called humanity children playing with fire. But humanity listened. They learned. They adapted. And they hid. They traded just enough to be tolerated. They showed weakness when asked, and foolishness when it suited them. While the empires laughed at their clumsy warships and their lack of psionic control, humanity played its greatest card: deception. For centuries, the galaxy believed the Terrans had no teeth, but hidden in asteroid fields, buried beneath dead moons, and locked within black-budget shipyards were weapons no alien had ever seen. Humanity had been building, quietly, patiently, waiting for the day someone was arrogant enough to test them. That day came with the Korth Collective. The Korth were not subtle. They were a machine empire, a fusion of flesh and steel that devoured worlds to feed their endless expansion. Their fleets were enormous, their armies tireless, and their arrogance absolute. To them, Earth was nothing but a water-rich rock to be harvested, its population enslaved and converted into cybernetic husks. The Korth entered Sol with 70 warships, each a behemoth bristling with weapons. They darkened the skies of Earth with their presence, broadcasting their terms on every channel. Submit or be stripped. At first, humanity bowed. Or at least that was what the Korth believed. Earth's defense grid was silent, orbital, stations powered down. The great cities dimmed their lights in feigned surrender. The Korth laughed, but deep in the asteroid belt, a different kind of laughter echoed. The first human warship rose from the shadows of Vesta, a monster of steel, scarred and ugly, nothing like the sleek vessels of the galaxy. It was a relic, yet not. A design born of desperation, coated in armor thicker than sense, with engines that screamed like tortured beasts. Its weapons were brutal: magnetic cannons, nuclear lances, and something new: railguns the size of skyscrapers, humming with destructive promise. The Korth flagship ordered its annihilation. The human warship fired first. One railgun slug tore through the void, moving faster than any Korth sensor could track. It punched through shields, armor, and reactor core in a single heartbeat. The Korth cruiser didn't explode. It came apart in silence, a flower of fire blooming across the black. The galaxy changed in that instant. The humans hadn't been weak. They hadn't been foolish. They had been waiting. More ships emerged from the shadows, hulking monsters patched together from old carriers, refitted with terrifying innovations. Each bore scars of human engineering, crude but effective, unpredictable, but devastating. They struck like predators, tearing into the Korth fleet with a fury that stunned the collective's commanders. The Korth expected submission. They received slaughter. From Mars rose missile platforms that had been hidden beneath its dust for a century. From Earth's oceans surfaced submarines that had been reborn as spacefaring torpedo barges. Even the moon lit up with cannons buried, deep within craters, firing tungsten rods that hit harder than gods. The Korth realized too late. Humanity had built a hidden arsenal. The battle for Sul was chaos. Korth ships poured fire into the swarm of human vessels, expecting them to shatter. But the humans didn't fight like machines. They didn't rely on perfect formations or predictable strategies. They fought like wolves, fast, reckless, savage. They rammed when outgunned, hacked enemy targeting when outmatched, and turned every piece of debris into a weapon. The Korth lost 20 ships in the first week, then 30, then 40. Their fleet tried to retreat, but humans didn't let them go. They hunted them across the system, striking from asteroids, from dark space, from behind shattered moons. No Korth vessel that entered Sol ever escaped intact. The collective screamed for reinforcements, but the damage was already done. The myth of Terran weakness was dead. The galaxy had seen the truth, and the truth was terrifying. The humans weren't just fighters, they were innovators. They reverse-engineered Korth wreckage mid-battle, ripping apart enemy tech and bolting it to their own ships within days. A captured plasma lance became the heart of a Terran dreadnought. Enemy drones were hacked and turned against their former masters. Every encounter with humanity only made them stronger. The Korth began to fear. They had come to harvest Earth, but Earth was harvesting them. Their technology, their tactics, their pride, it all became fuel for the human war machine. And humanity didn't stop at defense. Once Sol was secured, the Terran fleets pushed outward. Their first strike hit a Korth supply depot in Epsilon Eridani. A week later, their cruisers raided a collective shipyard. Every attack was brutal, fast, and merciless. The Korth, who had once devoured entire civilizations, now found themselves bleeding under the teeth of a species they thought was prey. The collective sent envoys offering terms. Humanity sent wreckage in reply. The message was simple. You should have left us alone. The war raged for years. The Korth threw fleets into the Terran grinder, and fleets came back in ashes. Human colonies, once scattered and vulnerable, became fortress worlds. Out of desperation, the Korth unleashed their greatest weapon, planet-killer drones designed to erase entire biospheres. They sent one to Earth. It never reached the atmosphere. A Terran dreadnought, the Retribution, intercepted it in high orbit. Instead of firing, the ship rammed the drone head-on, detonating both in a blaze visible from the ground. For weeks after, children on Earth pointed at the sky where the wreckage glittered like a false constellation. To them, it wasn't tragedy. It was proof. Proof that humanity would never kneel. The Korth collapsed after that. Their fleets shattered, their worlds abandoned, their leadership assassinated by their own fearful subjects. The collective had ruled the galaxy with terror for centuries. Now their empire was rubble, undone by a species no one had ever taken seriously. When the dust settled, the galaxy whispered a new truth. Humans were not weak. They were not fragile. They were not prey. They were the hidden arsenal, the storm waiting in silence, and every empire that had once mocked Earth now looked upon that blue world with trembling respect. Because the humans had taught the galaxy a lesson carved in steel and fire, you should have left them alone. The archives of the galaxy were clear. Do not provoke the Terrans. Ancient records, written in languages long dead, warned of them. Fleets lost to their stubborn defiance. Empires bled dry in wars of attrition. Species erased when they mistook humanity's patience for weakness. The Council had read those warnings, filed them away, and laughed. Surely those tales were exaggerations, myths wrapped in fear. Humans were just another young species, their homeworld little more than a scarred ball of water and stone. But arrogance is the oldest flaw of empires. The Council had grown vast and complacent, ruling dozens of sectors with fleets so large they blotted out stars. When one of their colonial governors demanded expansion, his eye fell on the fringe, on Terran space. Earth, with its few colonies and outdated ships, seemed perfect for a lesson. The Council wanted obedience, tribute, and fear, so they destroyed a Terran colony. It was small, barely 30,000 souls on a barren world called Helios 3. When the Council fleet arrived, they gave the colonists 1 hour to evacuate. The humans refused. They always refused. And so the fleet burned the colony from orbit, reducing its cities to glass and ash. The Council broadcast the act as a warning to others. This is the price of defiance. They did not understand what they had done. Across Terran space, silence fell. Not the silence of surrender, but the silence before a storm. Families wept for their dead, but behind their tears burned fury. Leaders met in shadowed chambers, speaking old words long kept hidden. And on Earth itself, ancient bunkers opened, and long-dormant engines roared back to life. The Council had ignored the last warning, and humanity's answer was war. The first sight of Terran retribution came weeks later, when black ships rose from hidden shipyards beneath the crust of Luna. They were not sleek, not elegant, but they were monstrous, angular, armored, bristling with weapons that seemed almost barbaric compared to the Council's pristine fleets. Yet there was something in them the galaxy had never seen before: purpose. The Council expected demands, envoys, negotiations. Humanity sent none. The Terran fleet jumped directly into the Helios sector, where the same Council ships that had burned. The colony lingered in arrogance. The humans didn't waste words. Their ships opened fire the instant they arrived. Railguns thundered. Missile barrages streaked through the void. Whole cruisers vanished under barrages that shredded shields. Like paper, the Council ships tried to regroup, tried to form their walls of fire and order, but humanity didn't fight like the Council. They fought like predators. One moment they struck from the front, the next from the rear, their ships darting through battle lines with suicidal speed. They rammed when outgunned, detonated reactors when cornered, and used the wreckage of their enemies as shields. When the smoke cleared, not a single Council vessel remained. The news spread faster than the jump relays could carry it. Humanity had not only retaliated, they had annihilated a Council fleet. Other species, long cowed into obedience, began to whisper. Perhaps the stories were true. Perhaps the warnings in the archives had been more than myth. The Council dismissed it as luck, as desperation. They sent another fleet, larger, stronger, armed with weapons designed to break sieges. Humanity met it with silence, then with fire. The second fleet perished as the first had, and with each battle, the Terrans grew stronger. Humanity was not like other races. The Council had centuries of peace, centuries of soft living. Humanity had known only struggle. War was in their bones, innovation in their blood. Every defeat only taught them. Every wreck salvaged became another weapon. They adapted, changed, and improved at a speed the Council couldn't match. Soon, it was not just colonies that fell to Terran vengeance. It was worlds. Council fortresses, once thought impregnable, went silent. Fleets fled at the mere whisper of Terran arrival. Outposts that had ruled for centuries were reduced to ash in a single day. The council began to panic. Their senators screamed for peace, for terms, for negotiation. But the Terrans did not speak. They did not bargain. They did not warn. They moved forward, system by system, a tide of steel and fury, and everywhere they went, they carried with them the ghosts of Helios III. It wasn't just revenge. It was a message. The galaxy watched as the Council, once unchallenged, fractured under the Terran storm. Old rebellions ignited. Subjugated worlds rose up, inspired by the sight of Terran warships cutting through armadas. The myth of Council invincibility shattered, and in its place rose another legend, the legend of humanity's wrath. The Council tried one last gambit. They gathered their greatest fleet, nearly 1,000 ships, at their core world of Avaris. It was more than any species had ever dared bring to a single battle. They meant to drown humanity in overwhelming firepower, to end the war with one decisive strike. The Terrans came anyway. They brought fewer ships, half, perhaps less. But each was a monster, rebuilt and reforged from centuries of hidden designs. Weapons no alien had ever seen erupted across the void. Spinal cannons that split dreadnoughts in two, swarms of drones that fought like rabid beasts, missiles that bent light itself before striking. The battle raged for days. The stars themselves seemed to dim beneath the fury. For every Terran ship that fell, 3 Council ships burned. For every line broken, humanity found another path forward. When the smoke cleared above Avaris, the Council fleet was gone. Their world lay defenseless, and still, the Terrans said nothing. The bombardment of Avaris was swift and merciless. The Council begged for peace, but humanity did not answer. The cities burned as the colony of Helios III had burned, the screams of billions echoing through the void. It was not cruelty. It was judgment. The galaxy trembled. For the first time, in millennia, the Council was broken. The Terrans had not only won, they had destroyed the very heart of an empire. Across every world, in every language, the same phrase was spoken in hushed voices. We should have left them alone. The warnings in the archives had been true. Humanity was not weak, not foolish, not prey. They were the storm that came when arrogance grew too great. They were the fire that consumed empires, and they had given the galaxy their last lesson. 1. Written in blood and ash. You should have left the humans alone. Then you wouldn't have had war.